Welcome to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. Thank you for your service.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. I am super excited to have on the show today Army veteran Carmelo Rodriguez. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I am a huge fan of the show MASH. Grew up watching it with my grandfather. Used to go there every day after school, sit down, and we'd watch MASH. Came on before Jeopardy and all that kind of stuff. Loved it. There is an episode of MASH that I remember distinctly. Hawkeye, main character, is pronounced dead by the U.S. Army. So he's over in Korea. They pronounce him dead. And he's rushing and trying to get in touch with his father so that his father basically doesn't have a stroke when he finds out that he's dead, because obviously he is not. And I tell you this story because Carmelo here has a very similar kind of story, except I think it's even worse because that was in Korea where paperwork could be corrected. We live in a digital age where things spread throughout the entire government quicker than quicksand. So we got a live one for you, and he's got a great story to tell. Carmelo, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How's it going?
It's great to have you on. As we usually do on the show, I'd love to hear a little bit about you, where you came from, how you decided to join the military, all that fun stuff. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, so first and foremost, thanks for having me on the show.
Of course.
So I'm a good old fashioned New Yorker. You know, I was born in the Bronx, and then I grew up in Brooklyn.
Okay.
I decided to join the military because, you know, at the time I felt like that was the only way out of the projects that I was living in.
Okay.
And the majority of my friends ended up either in jail or dead or whatever it was. So this was my way out. This was my outlet. So I decided to join back in 2005. I joined the Army because they were the ones who was willing to send me out immediately. And that's exactly what I wanted. I really didn't care too much about a specific field that I would be working in. I really didn't care so much about the agency. It was based on who can get me out of this situation right now.
Okay.
You know, so the Army, you know, as you know, they were recruiting heavily, you know, but they were mainly, you know, preparing people to head out to country. So, you know, I signed up. I was like, hey, you know, it can't be as bad as, you know, how I'm living right now. So I enlisted as a Cap Scout.
Okay.
You know, I did a couple of years. You know, I spent some time in country or whatever, and then I got injured while I was in the military. And I ended up getting medically retired due to the injuries that I sustained. And then that's where it gets fun. Yeah. So I ended up picking up a scholarship for Penn State. And that was great. I mean, like, man, Penn State, it's a well-known university.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, you're talking top in the country.
Yeah, top in the country. So, you know, I'm just a guy from the ghetto, you know, just trying to, you know, make my way. So that was a great opportunity for me until I started making that transition from being a gung-ho combat veteran who just, you know, recently got back from deployments to now I'm sitting in a class with a bunch of kids.
Yep.
You know, that was very difficult for me, especially that they're, you know, super liberal. They were all about war is bad and all this other stuff. And I'm over here sitting on the other end of it, talking about, well, you know, I just finished fighting for you.
So that you could have that idea.
Yeah. And now you're gonna sit here and tell me that, you know, this is this and that is that. So it was difficult for me because their veteran program was brand new, and I don't even know if I met another veteran that was there. And if I did, you know what? Let me take that back. I did meet one, and he was a Vietnam vet that was working there. And
okay.
for me to sit there and be able to just conversate with this with this man was the only thing that I had. You
Yeah.
know, and his conversations was very similar to mine. It's just, you know, he went through his thing, you know, many years ago, even though it was fairly fresh in his mind. And I just finished coming back from mine.
Yeah.
So I ended up transferring schools to Berkeley. That was great because they had a humongous veteran community. I mean, they helped me push along very, very, very well. I ended up getting my bachelor's degree through them. And then I started moving along into my master's program. While I was doing that, I got picked up to work with a federal agency as a prison guard.
Okay.
And then this is where the story gets fuzzy. So one night, there was a huge riot. It took about it took like a week before it subsided. And if anybody knows about the prison system, you can't have any electronics. They put everything in lockers. You can't go in there because, you know, whatever situations are, whatever security reasons. So I come back from this riot after about, you know, a couple days or a week or whatever. And I get like over 100 text messages and phone calls, and I'm like, what the hell? You know, I answer I start running through my voicemails and text messages, and it's like, oh my God, it can't be true. You know, I can't believe this is happening. You know, please call me, you know, whatever. So I'm calling my family members, my friends, and I'm like, everything okay?
Yeah.
And
What are
they're
you
like,
talking about?
and they're like, oh my God, you're okay. What the hell is going on? And I'm like, it was a riot, you know, and they're like, no, we received a letter that it was to the estate of Carmelo Rodriguez. And I was like, what?
I have an estate.
And
First of all, hold on.
yeah.
Somebody tell me about my estate first off,
Yeah.
and then we can get into why did you get this letter?
Yeah. So I'm over here calling my family members, my friends, and I'm like, no, you know, that's bogus. I don't know where you got that. I don't know what's going
Right.
on, you know. So I head home, mail all over the place. I had so much mail. It was nuts. So I start shuffling through my mail, and then I got one of the letters to the estate of Carmelo Rodriguez. We're sympathizing for your loss, you know, and these are the benefits that you will be obtaining for this period, and then everything will be cut off. And I'm like, what the hell? This is weird. So I ended up like brushing it off. I grabbed a beer, I sat down, you know, I ended up, you know, just taking a day.
Because at this point, you don't know how big of a deal this is.
Yeah, I'm like, because you know how sometimes you go through all these the fraud and all this BS, and you're just like, is this real? Is this not real? You know, there. I don't even know if there was a number on it. It was just, you know, this was the letter, and it was from the VA. So you know how many faults we go through as veterans just dealing with
the VA.
them. Yeah, especially through that specific time frame, because you know, there was so many changes that were going on. So, you know, I was like, whatever. Then I get a check in the mail the next day. It was a burial allowance check. And I'm
now
like,
this is getting real.
Yeah, not even. I was just like, at first I looked at it and I was like, ooh, a check.
Well, yeah.
Awesome. What did I do? You know? And then I open it up, and then it says burial allowance. And I'm like, and on the burial allowance, so the estate of, you know.
And they're mailing this to you?
They're mailing it to my address.
See, this,
Yes.
if you believed at all that the VA and the U.S. government is not completely inept, they're mailing the check to the person that is supposedly deceased. I mean, just take a moment, everybody out there in podcast land, take a moment to think about that.
Yeah. So, so I called the VA. You know how it is. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna wait an hour before you get a receptionist to transfer you somewhere else, and then you're gonna wait another 30, 40 minutes. So so I sat there, and I called the receptionist. You know, you go through all your security questions.
Hmm.
And then they were like, okay, so how can I help you? And I'm like, hey, so I got this weird letter that says this. And then I just got a check in the mail that says this. And she goes, oh. And I'm like, oh. And she goes, uh, so I've never experienced this. I've never gone through this. So somebody's going to have to call you back. And I was like, wait, I was just waiting for like an hour on the phone for you can so you can hang up on me.
Never a good thing if they want to call you back. Never a
Yeah,
good thing.
she was like, somebody's gonna have to call you back. And I'm like, okay, how long is that gonna take? And she was like, I don't know. Bloop. And there was a hang up. And I was like, all right, so that's a thing. So
Yeah.
I went about my day, just trying to stay busy or whatever it was. And then I want to say a few days later, I ended up getting a phone call. They said, hey, we have to verify all this information. I'm like, cool. They're like, okay, so after they verified everything, they were like, go to the regional office with whatever stuff that you have, and they'll take care of it. So I'm like, okay. And that was early in the morning. So I was like, okay, my mail gets there about, I think, noon. So I was gonna grab the mail. I don't even remember if I was waiting for something, but I ended up grabbing the mail. Bam, I get two more letters. That letter stated that they had a date on it that all of my benefits will be cut off on this day, and a final benefits check. And I was like, wait, what the heck is going on right now? That's when it really, really sunk in. And I ended up racing down to the regional office with all of my paperwork. And I'm like, hey, so I got this and this and this and this. And the clerk didn't even know what to say. The clerk was so confused and was like, I need a CID. And I give him my ID. He said, no, I need to see more ID. And I give him another one. And they're like, how many do you have?
Yeah, we're gonna need all of them.
I'm dumping out my wallet. And he's like, I gotta get my supervisor.
Oh.
So now we're going through this back and forth. And then the supervisor's saying, okay, now I need you to write an official testimony about what is happening and what has happened. And I'm like, okay, I thought you guys were going to take care of it. Like, this was supposed to be like something real fast. So I'm like, all right, cool. I wrote up the testimony. They gave me all my information. I took my paperwork. I was like, no, I'm going to need this. You can take a copy, but I'm going to need this.
Yeah. This isn't my first time in a rodeo here. Yeah. I know you don't ever give your paperwork to somebody.
You don't ever give the original documents.
No, sir.
Yeah. So they took all my information. They were like, okay, give it about 2 weeks. Everything should be cleared up. And I'm like, all right, cool. That sounds reasonable. So I go on about my days for for like a week. And then my ex-wife calls and she goes, hey, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but if there's any kind of fraud, I'm gonna turn you in. She was like, what the? And I'm just like, first and foremost, why are you calling me?
Right.
We're not cool.
Yeah. This ain't like a phone conversation type relationship.
Yeah. And she was like, if they come to my house, I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to let them know where you, and I'm just like, once again, who are you? Why are you why am I here even entertaining this conversation? And she goes, I got a letter in the mail. And I'm like, all right, cool. Send me a picture of it. So she sent me the picture and it was from the Department of Education. And I'm like, all right, cool. So it showed the same like sympathy, would sympathize the death of, this is to the estate of, but all of his school benefits will be cut from this time, from this point. And I was like, oh shit, and then I ended up getting a letter too from the same department. And I'm like, oh man, here we go. So then it just started spiraling from that point, that I was starting to get a letter in the mail almost weekly from a different agency.
Because now they're all interconnected. So once it starts
Wow.
spider webbing out, now it's in a database somewhere. And
Yes.
then everybody's using that same database.
Spider web.
Oh,
It was a spider web effect. I ended up by that time frame, it was like tax season, and I'm, still going through this battle or whatever. The VA supposedly said that they fixed it. No, they did say that they fixed it. But I was still getting these notifications. And then I ended up under a full-blown investigation by the IRS because I was filing taxes under a dead person. That was interesting. And then, like I said, it spiraled out to every single agency that needed to know that I was deceased now knows that I am officially deceased.
oh.
So yeah, so it almost became like a pun to all of my friends' jokes at that time, because they were like, "Oh, we need to do this. Oh, just ask the dead guy.
Right.
Oh, we need to
At
do
this
this. Oh,
point, you should be doing everything. I
yeah,
mean,
just and they're like, yo, hey, since you're dead, you should just go like rob a bank. I mean, you're dead.
you're dead. What are they
They
going to
won't be
do to
able to
you?
identify you." And I'm like, wow, you guys are some jokesters, whatever. So it ended up coming down to the fact that now it was affecting my job, and it was affecting. I have a little boy, so now it was affecting the child support and all of the legal matters that were pertaining to that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going through those battles, and then I think I started hitting a serious low. I started reaching out to attorneys. Everybody was so sympathetic. Nobody was able to help, and they were like, "Buddy, you're literally going against every single agency in the government. Like, we don't know what to do, and
Right.
we don't think we can help you win this." And I'm like, "Holy crap! How is this happening?"
And it doesn't sound like there's just this one entity that can fix it, because each agency is their own thing. So even if the VA fixes it, well, Department of Interior might say one thing, or Department of
Mhm.
Education might say one thing. So you have to get every single one of these agencies to get on the ball and fix
Mhm.
this.
Oh yeah, it took how long to declare me dead, that I was officially dead, and then over a 2 year span, it took that long, in able to resurrect me
Wow.
as a man that I'm standing today. But while I was backtrack a little, so while I was going through everything that I was going through, I ended up hitting a low when I came back from work, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go grab something to eat. I'm not trying to cook dinner or anything. And I go to the store, swipe my debit card, declined.
Declined.
And I'm like, decline? I just got paid today. Swipe, decline. I'm like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. I'm gonna use my credit card. Decline. No, I'm like, it gotta be your machine. And the dude's like, he knows me. I'm a regular. He's like, but it's not my machine. And I'm like, no, 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 whatever. So I end up calling the bank, and they're like, uh, you're gonna have to come down here because over here we got notifications. And I'm like, where's my money? I just got paid. I got paid today. Where's my money?
Don't play with my money and don't play with my emotions. And you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
both right now.
yeah. And I'm like, wait, so you're telling me that none of my bills got paid? None.
Oh,
I got automatic transactions that's supposed to be coming out, and you're gonna tell me that none of my bills got paid? And they're like, "Oh, we have no idea what's going on. You're gonna have to come down here, and you're gonna have to clarify all of this." So here I am with my every single form of ID I can possibly find in my house to fix that matter. And then it turned into like I said, the child support matter, because they're like, hey, now there's issues with you paying. There's issues with your checks. There was a lot of issues that were going on, and I'm like back against the wall at this point. And I truly hit some solid lows, and PTSD definitely sat in there and played its role. You know, lack of sleep, lack of energy, lack of motivation as a whole. Because I'm like, dude, like I'm dead and nobody can help me.
Right. And no matter what I do, I'm not getting anywhere here.
Yes, yes. So along the way, just out of because my friends, they were making fun of me so much, I started vlogging. And I'm like, can a dead guy do this? What about this? Is the dead guy doing that? And then over time, I started going to these departments and I started vlogging the whole thing, because I'm like, look, if nobody's gonna help me, I'm gonna help myself. I'm gonna make this happen. So now I started documenting the whole thing, and the videos, they went viral.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because
sure.
vets were like, what the heck? How is this a thing?
Yeah.
So on and so forth. It went so viral that national news picked it up. And now I'm out here pleading my case on national news, like this is what's going on. And like I said earlier, I was going through my master's program,
Mm-hmm.
and I could not finish it at the time because that was going on. And they were like, dude, like there's nothing we can do. And so that ended up changing once they seen me on the news. Now all of a sudden there was a program and they can go around to make sure that it happened. And I'm like, yeah, all right, that's good. Now it's turning into now things are starting to move.
Right.
And it was a slow journey. And I reached out to so many attorneys that it's almost it's laughable at this point. But if this person is actually listening, I say this in every single one of my interviews, because eventually I'm going to catch you. Whoever it was that ended up calling me and giving the information that I did, thank you, because you saved me. But throughout that whole time frame, this individual, I don't know who it was or whatever, ended up calling me, and they said they were an attorney. They didn't give me what agency. They didn't give me any information. You never heard from me. You're not going to get any information from me. After we're done having this conversation, you're never going to hear from me again. And I'm like, this is wild. This is
some movie shit right here, because
exactly.
Nobody does that. That's not a thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is a lie. Like, I'm like, dude, stop feeding me this, because I'm already hitting some lows and I don't have time for this. And then he was like, I'm not here to entertain any of that. This is the information that you need. And I'm like, I'll bite.
Okay.
What else do I got to lose? At this point, I'll bite. What else do I got to lose? So he's like, okay, so what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I do this for a living. And then he's like, okay, so if this was to happen, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, well, that's that. And he was like, okay. And if this was to happen, what is that? I'm like, oh, that's that. So we're breaking it all down. And then he was like, so if this is this, in legal terms, what would it look like? And I'm like, well, it looks like this. And then he was like, so plead that case. And if this was this, what would it look like? And I'm like, well, that looks like that. And then he's like, okay, so plead that case. And I'm like, holy crap. And then 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No worries.
And then I'm like, okay. And then he was like, okay, so you're going to start filing tort claims for everything that you are battling with. And I'm like, holy crap, I've never filled one out. I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, tort claims are so easy. You just, you can Google it, and it's pretty straight on for the most part.
And once you file a tort claim, they have to provide you information, correct?
Absolutely.
So it's almost like a Freedom of Information Act type thing, where you have to now give me this.
More than anything else, the claims that I was filing put them on a high alert.
Okay.
So throughout my time frame, I ended up getting really sick because, like I said, I was medically discharged because of my injuries I sustained while I was deployed. I take breathing medicine for my lungs. I have to
Okay.
take them every day. Now, because of this, there was a time frame that I couldn't take them because I didn't have them. And I'm going to the VA fighting to get my medicine. And they're like,
You don't exist.
dude, you're a fraud. This isn't you. All the way until one of my doctors was like, that's my patient. And he's like, I don't care what your information says there. That's my patient. And I got my medicine. But so there was a time frame that was going on. So one of the things which sounds super, super bizarre is this person, he was like, wouldn't that be attempted murder? And I'm like, what? And then he was like, wouldn't it be bizarre if you put something that extreme on paperwork, because this is literally what is happening to you. And
Right.
even though you're not alive, even though you are alive, these people, whether or not they're doing it purposely, they are trying to kill you. Now, isn't that considered attempted murder? And I'm like, this is so bizarre. And then we ended up running it down, and I was like, boom, I'm doing it. So I started putting it on all the paperwork. This is what's going on. This is what's going on. This is what's going on. And lo and behold, as soon as I started mailing it out, boom, 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 everything started happening almost immediately. Immediately. And like I said, I thank that person because he was the only one that was able to give me any kind of significant information to bring me back. Everybody else was like, this sounds crazy. We can't help you. Bye. You know?
Wow.
So from there, I started journaling this whole process. I was doing the vlogs. They were blowing up. Things were really moving along. And once I was able to resurrect myself, then I had this humongous journal. And my buddies were like, dude, just turn that into a book and see what happens. And I'm like, no, this is so personal. This is so
Right.
like,
This is like your
this
entire life.
is me. This is everything, because everything that I put in the videos or documentary to that point was just like everything that I wanted people to see, but everything behind the scene, like how I was really feeling, what was I really going through, that was in the journal.
Right.
And I was like, no, I can't do this. And then all the way until I picked up the courage and I was like, all right, I'm going to turn this into a book. Forget about it. This is going to happen. So I started putting it together, and I ended up being introduced to a publicist or whatever. We started going back and forth, and she was like, this story is so crazy that it almost sounds like some kind of conspiracy theory, whatever. And I was like, so what can I do to bring reality to it that makes it as real as possible? And she was like, you still got those documents? And I'm like, of course I do. She was like, what if we start adding these documents into the book to show these are the official documents and this is what's really happening along the way? And I'm like, that sounds super bizarre, but let's give it a go. So we put it together,
Mhm.
and we pushed it out to the universe, and boom, it exploded. It exploded like almost overnight. Everybody wanted a copy. Everybody wanted to know what happened. Everybody wanted to know what was happening. And it kind of it spiraled into an amazing form. And then I ended up getting another one. Hey, buddy, how isn't this not a movie? And I'm like, all right, so I figured out how to write a book. This is my first book, and I was able to do it. Let me see if I could write a screenplay. Let me see if I can figure this out. Let me see if I could put this together. Once again, I made it happen.
That's
And
awesome.
then it was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. So I start submitting it to different, directors, producers, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Then I started getting hits. I started getting hits left and right.
Well, it makes
And then
sense because the whole thing
yeah,
sounds like a movie.
yeah.
I mean, you're telling me, especially when you talk about the lawyer calling you up and you've never heard from me, you'll never
Yeah.
hear from me again. Go at an angle of attempted murder. You're basically going against the federal government with this kind
Yeah.
of person on a telephone, this,
Yeah.
masked figure kind of thing. It's a movie. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. And I'm like, when I was going through that specific time frame, when I was having this conversation with this person, I'm literally writing off of like printing paper. And I'm just like, I'm literally at one point I was just like drawing circles and drawing like dots because I'm like, this dude is nuts. And then I'm like, why am I entertaining this? Am I going crazy? Is this what my life is turning into? Like,
Has it
is this
gotten
really
this
happening?
bad?
Yeah. And I'm just like, but why am I entertaining this? And why does this make so much sense? And I'm going back and forth and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just battling with myself. And, I think I spent that whole night just researching because I'm like, and that was one of the things that helped me get through this was that I needed to know why this was happening and why I could not take control over it,
Right.
So it would this was keeping me up at night. This was, turning my whatever I was asleep into maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, or every moment of every day. Now I'm like doing some kind of research because I need to know if I take this step, what's going to happen next. So it kind of turned into that. And then after everything, I put everything together. I put everything into the script. I put everything into the book. And I finally ended up with somebody that was willing to take on this project and not transform it into something different.
Okay.
Because
Keeping it
it was
real to
like,
what you were actually going through.
yeah, because it was like, one of the first guys was like, I'll buy it from you. I'll just buy the story. And I was like the like everything. And they were like, yeah, we'll just buy the story from you. We'll give you such and such money. And I'm like, no, I could make that in a year. I could make that in a couple of months with my book sales.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, well, we'll end up, buying the story and the book sales. The book has to come down. I'm like, okay, so you're gone. Bye.
You're done, and we're done with you.
Yeah. And then the next one was like, we'll do it, but we're gonna turn it into like a Jason Bourne.
Yeah, geopolitical,
And
yeah.
I'm like, no. And we're just going back and forth. I'm like, I have to stay true to this story. I have to stay true to myself. And this is so far-fetched that it's literally everything that people would think that it would be,
Yeah.
that they're like, oh yeah, this is some conspiracy theory bullshit. And it's not true. And I was like, I can't. And then, I ended up picking up an individual that was like, we want this, we won't change it. We'll make it as it is because we think that this is amazing. And this is so bizarre, and we think that, the world would benefit off of knowing what's going on and then to expand. And I'm like, yes, let's do it. So right now we're working together to make that happen.
Awesome.
And it all started with something, a struggle that I refused to let beat me.
Now,
Yeah.
That's what kind of catapulted you into more than just the writing, more than just the movie. You're doing motivational speaking, you're doing life coaching. Talk a little bit about that, because I could definitely see how that kind of formed out of, you had to pep talk your way out of the situation that you were in. So if you could do it for yourself, which is always the hardest thing, you could certainly do it for other people.
Absolutely. So from there, I ended up getting into a few, being a part of a few nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was based off of, motivational speaking and just speaking. And then from there, I dabbled into life coaching because I wanted to see what that was about. And because it was in the path that I was traveling at that time. So I'm like, okay, so you learn everything about leadership and everything that you need to know about leading a soldier to to get the job done, to get the mission done, even beyond any kind of family tribulations or any kind of personal issues that they go through. So I already had that kind of mindset. So the life coaching and the confidence coaching, it kind of just it set it was already in the path. It was already there, and everything was already so similar
Hmm.
to what they were teaching. And I was like, man, I already know the majority of this stuff because I had to teach my soldiers this when I was in country, when I was doing what I was when I was doing as an NCO. So it fit the right time frame for me with everything that was going on, and I started doing the speaking, and then I started doing one-on-one coaching with
Okay.
individuals that was going through whatever struggles, whatever kind of career orientated um, goals that they needed to get through. And we started moving along, and everything started blossoming and started coming together as one. And then from there, I decided, hey, um, let me dabble into writing another book.
Okay.
So I ended up writing a motivational piece, and that took off.
Is that
And
the
I'm
race
like,
against the alarm clock?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, and that took off. And honestly, I ended up pulling it down because I wanted to use the book and all of the lessons in the book for uh for a tour that I'm working on right now.
Okay.
So once the tour kicks off, I'm gonna end up putting the book back on for sale. But I worked on that book, and I put all of the life lessons, all of the coaching, all of the goal orientated lessons in order
Hmm.
to get you to the next step. Whether it's a week from now, a year from now, your 5 years from now, wherever it leads, there's specific steps that you will go through and paths that you would take in order to get there. So, I was teaching that for a while, and then I ended up deciding to write another book, and it kind of just like trickled into the point that now I'm writing my ninth book.
9 books, man.
And yeah, right now I'm writing my ninth book, and um I am working on my third movie.
You're a busy man. You're definitely a busy man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I
um,
never at this point it's I try to dabble in whatever opportunity that I can, as long as it's in my path. If it's motivational, if it's
mhm.
anything about helping another individual, helping soldiers, just whatever it is along that path, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And the motivational stuff, all of that, it's very interesting. But one of the things that I cued in on was the description of, I don't know if it was the last book, it was the book that was released in 2020, The Hardest Language.
Hmm.
So I'd like to talk to you real quick about that because it's a very interesting concept of how de-escalation, using what you've learned in different careers that you've been a part of, um, high stress scenarios, and being able to talk your way through those. So for the listeners, can you describe a little bit about The Hardest Language and why you wrote that
Well, I started writing the book, or I wrote the book, because of everything that was going on with COVID.
one? Okay.
So if you read along, or if you've read through the book, there was a lot of situations that veterans were going through, suicidal moments. They were going through a lot of PTSD. There
Hmm.
was a lot of DV, domestic violence. There
Yep.
was a lot of stuff that was going on based on the fact that people were locked in their house.
Yeah.
So, and people were so based on just like locked in the house, just watching the news,
Hmm.
and that's not reality.
It's
you
not
know
healthy.
but that was the reality in that moment
Hmm.
for these individuals.
Yeah.
So I started writing a book, and when it was complete, I started reaching out to researchers and professors, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And there was a lot of back and forth until I felt that it was perfect for the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, breaking down, how do I, and it sounds so crazy, but how do I effectively communicate with somebody as simple as my sister, my mother, my wife? How do I effectively communicate with my boss? And this day and age, everything's so based on text message.
Of course.
Everything is so based on emails that people forget how to talk to each other. And it's almost like people communicate like they're sending an email.
Yeah.
And emotion behind anything that's going on.
Yeah.
There's no sympathy, there's no laughter, there's nothing.
You're not seeing somebody's facial expressions. You're not reading their body language. You're not understanding where they're coming from with the words that they're actually using. I see it all the time at work. I'll be literally face to face with somebody and we'll be talking and they'll be like, well, I'll send you an email about that. Wait a minute. You're in front of me. We're talking. We can actually communicate and actually hash something out, but you would rather stop that, go back to a room by yourself, type something that I'm going to misconstrue or, not understand fully what you mean. And we're no better off because of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one thing to say, hi, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can completely change the tone. How are you? And then based off of your language, or based on the volume of your language or the attitude that you give, that's how you're going to be able to adjust how to effectively communicate with that person.
Yeah.
Now if you just text it to them, you're not going to understand what kind of attitude that's coming with that. You're not going to understand the emotion that's coming with that. And there's so much that I feel like this day and age has been pulled from, that they need to go back to the basics. Whatever happened with turning off your phones and having a conversation at your table with your family.
Yes. My wife and I had a rule when we would go on like date night. Don't bring the phone out. Don't, because we were doing it. We caught ourselves. We realized it one night. We were out and we're both on our phones. Meanwhile, we're sitting across from each other. It's supposed to be our date night. And from then on, we were like, you know what? No, stop that. We're not going to do that anymore. And you almost have to set that boundary because it's such a knee-jerk reaction to pull the phone out. It's like a part of our brain now. I'm the worst about it. I admit it wholeheartedly. My wife has to check me every once in a while and just be like, hey, you've been on the phone a while. Baby's playing. You're right. I'm missing this. Stupid. Put the phone away. Anybody out there that is a married couple can relate to this book and the importance of this. Because if you are married and your significant other has not said to you, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, then you are not married, you're lying, and I'm calling your bluff, all right? Because it's guaranteed, that's the normal answer.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you had a conversation with your wife and there's multiple ways of saying, excuse me?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Excuse me? Yep. And you're just like, wait, how high pitch was that? Wait,
yep.
Yeah.
And you're a New Yorker, so you can relate. Yeah. My wife is from Nassau County. Okay. I know when that Nassau County comes out. Now I'm a Suffolk County boy. So when that Nassau County comes out, I try to find another room. I hide. It's not worth it, man. I want to live. But that inflection attitude comes out real quick.
Oh, and then her attitude, the way that she talks, her slang, yeah, that all comes out at once.
It all comes out quick, man.
The accent is heavy, and you're just like, oh, yeah.
I screwed up. For sure, man, for sure. Now, I love the idea of talking about communication because it also goes into everything that you're kind of about. if you're doing life coaching, if you're trying to educate people on how to rise up out of their worst moments, if we don't talk about how we communicate with each other, it just makes that so much harder. Because if we're not having that two-way communication, we're not helping each other. If you're not really listening to me, or you're not understanding the emotions that I'm going through, how is that ever going to be successful? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I applaud you for that. Must have been a tough undertaking.
It was actually really fun
Mhm.
because now I'm debating with professors and researchers about, different scenarios and situations.
Mhm.
And we're just going back and forth. And then, then you get to the point that you agree to disagree,
Okay.
but at the end of the day, this book is really awesome. And they want you to put it out just as bad as you want to put it out.
Of course.
So, at the end, I was like, wow, this is a success, and then once I was done doing that, then I started getting the emails, the DMs, the questions, and it all came down to one specific thing. How do you get started with writing books? Like, where's your beginning?
Yeah.
And sitting down and coaching individuals, to get their books started based off of whatever journals or whatever they have going on. I decided to write, I think it was my 6th book at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that book was called Just Write the Book.
Okay.
Yeah. And in that book, I put in all of the crazy scenarios that I went through, all of the knee-jerking reactions, all of the hair-pulling moments, all of the times that I ended up erasing everything because I thought it was crap.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I'm like, holy crap, I needed that. Or, whatever it was that I was doing in order to successfully get my book done. And then while I was doing that, I added the comedy because obviously it's not going to, be a boring book. I'm not here to try to write somebody to sleep.
Yeah, it's not a textbook.
So I'm here to bring you into my life on how I got it done.
Yeah, right.
And the proper steps that you need to take in order for you to get it done. And then you'll have your story on how you were able to do it.
Right.
So I got it done. And right now it's looking to be published next month officially.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And that was all of this was started because, the trials that I went through at one point that, I decided myself, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to make it happen. Yeah. And because of that, I'm here today and I learned so many lessons and, I'm just grateful at this point.
It's an amazing story, man. I'm telling you, I'm almost like I'm a little speechless when you describe the whole thing. And I keep going back to it, especially the phone call from the guy from the law office that doesn't exist. And we still don't know where this guy is. Who the hell knows? You haven't found him yet. One day, maybe you will. I hope you do, because you probably owe him a beer.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. But
yeah, I give him a shout every time that I get on an interview because I'm like, hey, eventually that person's going to hear it.
It's a small enough world. Yeah. Sooner or later, your paths are going to cross. But it's such an amazing story. And for anybody who's ever dealt with the government, it just proves how difficult it can be when you're the little guy going against such a machine that's so set in its ways. And if Form B doesn't have a check mark on Form C line D, then it doesn't count. Wait a minute, but I'm standing in front of you telling you this.
When I really didn't go too much into it when to try to figure out what happened exactly. Right. Because at that time, I just wanted to get it fixed. I really didn't care who did it. I really didn't care what the issue was that I ended up in that situation. I just wanted it fixed.
Yeah, who cares about the why at that point?
Yeah, and then like when I actually sat down with a couple of people to try to figure out what it was, supposedly, there was a transitioning in the programs that they had because I guess the VA was transitioning as a whole at that time frame.
Okay.
So when that was happening, their systems were showing like little glitches. And out of that, like they were able to catch bits and pieces of information that was, you know, disappearing, but mine was
Didn't get
the
caught.
0.00000, I don't even know, percent. Yeah,
You're a
that
glitch
went
in the
all the
matrix,
way.
man.
I am a glitch.
Jesus, that is crazy. Any
Yeah.
any timeline on the movie? Do you have that yet?
Not as of today. So
Okay.
we're looking, we are playing with the ideas of June, July for the trailer to come up.
Okay.
So as of right now, that's the only information I can really give you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but I
just
am
would love
heading
people
out
to be on the
to,
lookout. So they just need
oh
to be on
yeah,
the lookout.
oh yeah. So I'm heading to New Orleans tomorrow to continue to film. So
Okay.
if you guys are out there, give me a shout. I'll be out there, you know. Yeah, we can chat it up, you know, and
Yeah,
have a good time or whatever. Yeah, it'd be
for
great.
sure. No, that's listen, man. I love hearing that you're at least got past it. You know, the story itself is a little scary, especially if you are a conspiracy theorist. Listen, if you're a conspiracy theorist out there, just maybe skip this episode. I don't know. You might not be able to get through this. I would find people in the basement rocking back and forth. That's not good. That's not what I'm about.
Yeah.
But for everybody else, it's a great story, and I'm glad that there's a positive ending to it where you created this whole world based out of what you went through, and now you're helping other people, which is really what it's all about. When you get through something, you have to pull the next person up. If we're not doing that, then really what are we doing? So you know, it's great to hear that you are. How can people find you, more information, all that stuff? What's the best ways to get in touch with you if anybody wants to reach out?
You can reach me on Instagram at VetDoc Series Studios.
Okay.
You can reach me on Facebook at Carmelo Rodriguez.
Okay.
My books, they're, man, at this point you could just Google my name, author Carmelo Rodriguez, and I'm in probably every single shop right now. Amazon, I'm a top seller on Amazon right now. Barnes and Nobles, they're back and forth with the contracts to keep it consistent at this point. So yeah, you can literally find this book anywhere. And I just want to warn you guys, once you pick up the book, it's going to take a day away from you. I leave every single chapter on a cliffhanger. So every single one of my readers to this point has told me I can't put it down, or I couldn't put it down, or this is like a binge Netflix series that you can't stop watching.
Right.
Because it's like just when you're about to find out what's going to happen, boom, something else. And it was a spiraling effect. And, you know, a lot of my readers say, man, you brought me, I was living your life. I was walking your shoes. Or, you know, one of my buddies, he even told me, he was like, look, this is a toilet break for me. And he was like, it was sunny out when I went to the restroom, and now it's dark and I can't walk. I can't feel my legs. And he said, thank you.
Thank you for the compliment, but you know, get blood flow back to your legs, bro. Stand up. That's not good, man.
Yeah, but these are the comments. This all the wild stuff that people will leave, all the reviews that people will leave on Amazon. You know, it's right there, and you know, it's like I said, I'm running a top seller right now, so it's really good.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing the success, especially for another veteran who's gone through enough. I want nothing but success for you after everything that you kind of been through, man. But no, I love to hear it. Please check this guy out. Check out the books. A couple books coming out in the future with the one about writing. Check out that one. Like I said, if you are a married man, please do yourself a favor. The Hardest Language. Look that one up. Order it up. You can get it, and it'll save you. So definitely take a look at that one as well. So, Carmelo, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've had a blast talking to you, man.
Yeah, man.
All right. You have a great day. All right, sir?